Welcome to the Unexpected Podcast, where your hosts, Lee and Amy, carry on simple conversations about everything from life experiences, the current culture, God, and everything in between. And because Lee has put Amy through years of surprises, this is her time to surprise him with unexpected topics he won't be privy to until the microphone is on and the camera is rolling. This is the Unexpected Podcast. Welcome to another episode, everyone out there.
Hello, everyone.
Woo! You know what? We are just living life today. Are you guys living life today? And by living life, yes, enjoyment is part of it.
Yes.
But I'm talking, we've been running around, multitasking, getting our hair that was kind of somewhat presentable out into the humidity, only to have it just, like...
You mean your hair?
Yeah, my hair. It doesn't matter what your hair is doing.
No.
Because you're always wearing a hat. Or oftentimes wearing a hat.
Most of the time.
Most of the time.
There we go. Most of the time.
Y'all know that song? Bob Dylan? You should check it out. It's a good song.
Old Bobby.
All right. Well, you know what?
What do we got today?
We're going to have another topic that you don't know anything about today.
Oh.
And let me just say this. One of the ways we build this, if you will, podcast is we carry on simple conversations. Today's going to be really simple. I didn't really do much prep work for this. It's just that you and I were recently having breakfast and we're talking about something, and it made me think that's a good topic. And we're going to talk about difficult people.
Like me?
Well, that's a great point.
You didn't say no.
I didn't say no, but that's not really what I was suggesting. But I was going to offer this disclaimer in that we're going to be talking about difficult people that, you often encounter in life, but with the disclaimer that we can be difficult people at times.
Absolutely.
So we don't ever want to get up on our high horse. And, it's kind of a trendy thing right now. It seems people will be online talking about the characteristics of narcissistic people and never acknowledging that maybe they have some of those.
Maybe they're narcissistic.
Yeah, maybe they have some of those characteristics.
One person said when you got one finger pointing at somebody else, you got three more pointing back,
That's
back
right.
at you.
That's right.
Yeah.
And usually the thing, it even says in Romans 1, the thing that you accuse others of is the same thing that you're guilty of. So absolutely, that happens all the time. But when I was thinking about talking about dealing with difficult people, one thing I have learned, and I know you have too, is that sometimes there are solutions. There's simple solutions.
Yep.
Other times, it's not so simple.
Right.
So let me give you an example. A number of years ago, many years ago, and so anyone that I mention in this little anecdote will not be, someone I'm in contact with now. But I got a job, it was shortly before we got married, as a teacher, an elementary school teacher in a private school. Now, I do not have an education degree, but I was hired to teach in this small private school. And I actually was chosen over two other candidates who actually had teaching degrees. But the reason I was selected was that I understood their philosophy of education and what they wanted to do at the school. Well, there was a teacher who was already there on staff who just didn't like me from the beginning.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, I didn't do anything in particular, but it was kind of obvious. And so she would, do little things like manipulate what had to happen, because she had been there longer, and she would say, "Oh, you have to do recess duty today," and she would kind of take advantage of me being new, and she was very difficult.
Yeah.
But that was one of those times where actually the solution was pretty simple, and I started just showing her kindness.
Right.
So I would get to the end of the day, and when I was taking my trash out, I would just go by her room, and I'd be like, "Oh, let me take your trash out for you." I mean, it was simple, just showing love. Eventually, this same person who seemed so in opposition to me really turned around. And when she went through a difficult situation, like in her marriage, I was the person that she turned to.
Yeah.
And so that was simple. That was like just kind of showing love. I can tell you want to say something now.
No,
Jumping.
go right ahead.
Okay.
I'm still
You're still pondering?
pondering because
Okay.
there's so many
Yeah,
tangents I could go
so
on.
many tangents. And I've had other situations where, yeah, it almost seemed like a person just immediately, for whatever reason, was, didn't like me.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was this opposition. But then just by showing just love, doing a little bit of service, very simple,
Mm-hmm.
those people's hearts changed. Now, later, I encountered scenarios where it seemed like no matter what I did, I could not resolve the animosity in that person's heart towards me. And that's sometimes uh, just a sign of a person who's not going to really get along with anybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I've also encountered those kinds of situations and learned that the solutions aren't simple.
No, there are no simple solutions to life a lot of times.
Yeah.
Unless you're willing to humble yourself.
Well, that's
The
true.
humility is what makes it simple to deal with. But a lot of us have so much pride in us that I ain't doing that. You hurt me, I'll forgive, but I ain't going to forget.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's true.
that's where we get. And sometimes you just need to forget about it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to just move on. But yeah, I've had those people. I mean, there's some people that are it just takes a minute.
Right.
To learn how to get along with them because it's not their nature to be easy to get along with. They've been hurt, they've been messed up, they've been manipulated in the past, or they've got some sort of thing going on to where they lash out at others and blame others for what somebody in their past has done.
Yes, they're projecting that onto you. Yeah, and in these scenarios, we're talking about people who are very, very wounded, and oftentimes unwilling to forgive, unwilling to move forward. But here is one thing that I learned, and this really ties in with what you said about humility, because I was in a situation. Now, let's just say this. First of all, in some of these situations, these are people that you should just walk away from.
There are times to walk away. There are times, shake the dust from your feet and walk away from them because they ain't worth it.
Right.
I mean, that's harsh. Let God deal with them because you don't have the capacity to.
Right.
I think that's probably the best way to put it.
Right. But then there are those scenarios where you can't get out of it. It could be a work-related situation, something where you have to continue to deal with it. And so going to your point about humility, in one situation I was in one time with a person who was very, very just difficult, and it didn't matter how much kindness was shown. It didn't matter. I tried, you try different approaches, like, oh, maybe I'll be more direct. Maybe I'll be less direct. You've done everything you can. But I remember one time, and this was very humbling because the Lord spoke to me and said, that person who has these very, very harsh characteristics, manipulative, not just manipulative, but that deep, deep bitterness, they can only get to you. And by get to you, I mean like bring you down. They can only get to you to the degree that you may still have some of those characteristics in yourself.
Yeah, I think that's why.
And that is humbling.
Well, there's the old scenario of the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law not getting along because the son has a tendency to marry someone who's like his mother. So they have similar traits, so that's why they don't get along.
They butt heads.
And they butt heads because both of them feel like they're right when both of them are right, but have a different approach.
Right.
So there's a lot of that too, as far as, I don't know about daughters. I don't know,
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Been out in the weeds. Yep.
But there are those scenarios where, you butt heads with people because you just are so much alike.
Right.
And you think, well, they're trying to outshine me. They're trying to make me look belittled. But actually all they're doing is just being. And so I feel like at times I used to be that guy that wanted to help to the point that I was annoying. And I still am that guy to a point. But when people are hard to deal with, sometimes I hate to say this, but sometimes I'm egging it on
Uh-oh.
because,
Confession time.
yeah. So when people don't like me, that makes me want to like them even more.
Mm-hmm.
That's a weird. I'm weird. I can't help it. But if my presence aggravates somebody, I'm going to escalate it, and that's wrong of me. It's wrong. I am absolutely wrong in it, and I feel
Is
like
it always wrong, or is it
probably not wrong all the time, but
Right.
sometimes it is because
Okay.
I'm very vulnerable. I'm very open to people, and I have an issue with that. When I say issue, like sometimes I overgive information.
Oh yeah, too much of an open book is
Too
not
much of
a
an
good
open
thing.
book.
And I love that idea. I've heard this description in relationships, taking even like the temple in the Old Testament, like and the different levels. Like there's the holy place and the holy of holies. But some people are just outer court friends. Like you should only go so deep with certain people and not reveal everything.
Outer court friends. I like that.
Yeah, and so that deep revealing a lot about yourself should be reserved for certain situations and certain relationships.
I want to like everybody. I really do.
Yeah.
But there's some people that, and I think I've said this before, there's some people that I just want to throat punch.
Well, this is a tangent a little bit, but you're making me think of something here.
That sounds violent. I'm sorry.
Yeah, throat punch, man, that keeps coming up. Throat punch. Okay. I've never seen you throat punch anyway. He's not a violent guy, by the way. We just all feel it sometimes. Like, yeah, I just really want to
smack 'em.
unload. But talking about liking people.
Yeah.
Generally, like I know for myself. What are you laughing about?
I don't know. Just the thought of me throat punching somebody and you looking at me going,
Reel
all
it in.
right.
Yeah, no, reel it in.
Why?
Reel it in.
Reel it in.
Okay. But
Sorry.
no, in reference to liking people, I would say like generally like when I meet someone, I just automatically like them. I just like most people. And I always give the benefit of the doubt and I always want to think the best of people and really do that. But occasionally, I'll meet someone and it's like, there's just something about that person that rubs me the wrong way. And then I'll feel a little bit guilty about it. Like, I shouldn't be thinking bad things about them. I don't want to judge them before I have all the evidence. But then there've been so many times where my suspicions were confirmed. And it's like something about just the way a person was talking would rub me wrong. But then I would find out later that they don't represent some good things. And so I was correct in my assessment there, but we can miss it too.
We can miss it too, but I think a lot of times the older generation that I grew up with, one person in particular, my grandfather, he would look at me sometimes and see the people I'm hanging with or look at somebody and he can tell, he's like, that person's no good.
He was a good judge of character.
He's a good judge of character. And being a good judge of character is vital in this day and time. But man, it's all over the place. I mean, there are sheep's and wolves clothing or wolves and sheep's clothing
right
all over the place because they're people that'll stab you in the back, but they're your friend in front of you and then stab you in the back. And how do you deal with that? How do you navigate that? Because they're going to do it. I mean, what do you do when somebody does you wrong?
Right.
And turn the other cheek.
That's right. Well, and I think the other side of that story is, you see someone's faults, but on the other hand, it's easy to see faults, but it's not always easy to see someone's potential. So you don't want to write people off either. You have to guard yourself. But you don't want to write them off because you also want to be a person who can look and see, but this person does have this potential.
Right.
Because they're created in the image of God and they could be this even though they're this right now.
Right.
So you don't want to write people off.
Yeah, we shouldn't write anybody off. I mean, there's hope for everybody. Right. Is what I choose to believe. And sometimes it doesn't look like they have hope.
Right.
They're a hopeless case. And I've heard that before.
Right.
They're hopeless, and it's like.
But you know what? There was a time when there were some people who looked at me and the way I was living and said I was hopeless. And without Christ, I really was hopeless. And it's interesting to me looking back now when I was a new believer because I came out of so much darkness. that there were people who later told me, they're like, we didn't know if you were going to make it.
Yeah.
And so without Christ, I wouldn't have, without the power of God. So we also have to know that there is divine intervention. And we've seen people who have been transformed out of extreme darkness into his light.
So you mean that as a believer, as a Christian, as a person of faith, I'm not allowed to throat punch people?
You are not. And you can't cut off people's ears. And yeah.
Jesus flipped tables.
Yep.
Can I flip tables?
It must be spirit-led. You must have good reason. And but probably not. I can't see a scenario where you're going to need to go in and flip a table.
Yeah.
But there are times when you might need to go in.
It's a holy indignation.
Yes, there's a time for that.
There's a time for
it has its place.
Yeah.
But it's not every day.
Not every day.
No, certainly not.
No.
But listen, going back to thinking about these situations with difficult people, why are you laughing?
I don't know. I just keep thinking of all these scenarios of difficult people that it's just like, hey, you're difficult. I don't want to deal with you.
That's true.
I just want to walk away.
Okay,
you just go away. Don't ever talk to me
Let
again.
me ask this question, because I've talked to so many people lately who, because of the way the world is right now, they just want to go in their homes and never leave. And I do feel that way sometimes. You know, we have to get out sometimes and run errands, and it's like, oh, it's so good to be back home because I don't want to deal with all the crazies.
Yeah, there's some crazy people.
There are.
There are people who have lost their ever-loving mind.
Mm-hmm.
They have lost it. And
That's true.
they, as my mom would say, they're bat crap crazy. That's something, it's like, you can't fix that.
Yeah.
And it's like only God could fix that. And he has a hard time with it. Not really, but
yeah.
I look at drivers. I look at people walking down the street, people going into stores, and they're all messed up. They've made bad choices in their life, and they're blaming everybody else for their bad choice. And difficult people, just difficult people to deal with because they got their mind set on one thing, and ain't nobody telling them anything.
Right.
They can't receive good wisdom. They can't receive good knowledge.
Well, and sadly, they're maybe not even around very many opportunities to hear good wisdom, which then brings us back to the situation where we can't just go isolate in our homes. We need to be interacting with people and being a bright light when we can. But yeah, you have to kind of find a balance there.
It's so depressing. It's just so depressing.
We're here today to make you all depressed.
Yes. No,
we're not.
We got to encourage one another because this is a dark time. This is a time that we have got to stand up and be who we are in Christ.
Well, where does a candle shine brightest?
In the darkness. I mean, be that light. And that's where we have to be as believers, as Christians, and just as people, you know, good people. There are good people out there that don't know God. They don't know anything about the Spirit, but they're searching, and they're searching for truth, and they're searching for righteousness. They're searching for the right thing in life, and they will find it eventually. But it takes believers to go say, "Hey, you know what? We found the way, the truth, and the life, and found the way to the Father, and it's through Jesus." Right,
and not just to say it, but to live it.
To live it, you live it in front of them. If you don't live it, in front of them, then and live it in private. Then there's really you need to reevaluate your relationship,
because
with the
that's
Lord
really
and
where
others.
it is. There have been polls done and asking people who are followers of Christ, people who have made that conversion to Christianity, and when asked, how many of you came to know the Lord through an evangelistic crusade or some kind of outreach? It's a very small percentage. It doesn't mean that those things aren't important, but most people come to faith in Christ because they see it being lived out in relatives or coworkers or friends.
Yeah,
that's
and through
really
relationship.
how it happened.
The religion doesn't do a whole lot.
Right. It is relationship.
It's relationship inside of that religious construct that makes the thing happen. And it's, man, if you are a part of an organized religion, fine. That's great. Do your thing. Don't come and like put your thumb on top of my head or anybody else's head and demand that this is how you got.
Mm-hmm.
There's a journey, and within those boundaries of that journey is where we need to stay.
Right.
And if you go outside that, there's a conviction. If you really truly want the truth, if
Mm-hmm.
you really want some sort of stability,
Mm-hmm.
it will lead you to Jesus.
Right.
If you really want it.
When you're open. Yeah.
When you're open.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Now, whether you're orthodoxy or you're, Church of God or non-denominational or Baptist or Pentecostal or whatever you are.
Whatever the label
is, it still comes down to relationship between you and God through Jesus.
Right.
Period. And others.
Right.
Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. These are the things that Jesus said all the law falls on.
Ooh,
You do these two things, then all the rest of it falls into place.
And that really applies to our topic of dealing with difficult people.
Dealing with difficult people, yes.
Well, one other thing I wanted to say about it, because I know we have to wrap up here in a moment, but in those scenarios where the solution is not simple, you're dealing with someone, and you've tried everything, and it's still just like butting heads. One of the advantages of being in those situations is that now that I've identified those characteristics in a person, I've later come across other people, and because I had dealt with those certain spirits before, those certain little behaviors, now I can recognize them in other people who come along, and I don't have to be vulnerable. It's given me wisdom to know, okay, maybe put a little bit of a guard up here. Don't let your guard down. And then it's kind of an empowerment moving forward.
Yeah,
to not be sideswiped.
Know the signs
know
of
the
it.
signs, yeah.
You know them by the fruit that they bear.
That's right. That's right.
That fruit is very vital, and they'll know you by the fruit that you bear.
That's right. That's
whatever we do, that's how people are going to know us. And if that's forgiveness, if that's love, if that's peace, then they're going to know us for that. If it's guile and negative and pessimistic and always putting other people and gossiping about others, and
remember, if they'll gossip to you, they'll gossip about you. That's right.
So, and that's what was it? That movie, Still Magnolias.
Oh, if you can't say something nice about somebody, come sit next to me. Yeah, and there's a lot of people like that, and of course, then gossip also gets
gossip.
Gossip gets gossip gets disguised too as prayer requests. Now,
yeah.
Everybody, we need to pray for, Sister so and so, or got to pray for Linda, because y'all might not know this, but she's been out on the town and doing things she shouldn't be doing, but now let's pray for her. And really, it was just an opportunity to gossip.
Yeah. I saw her out with Bobby Joe. That's not her husband. we got to get her out. We got to expose her.
Exactly. It's our duty.
That harlot.
No. But it's actually the Bible. There's a word you don't hear every day, but the Word of God does say love covers a multitude of sins. So, to not expose someone is actually to show love.
It is. And the Bible actually
prayer.
says go to the person, confront the person about their sin and talk to them and actually try to reason with them of why they're going down that path, and if it's something that you guys can talk about.
Right.
Instead of going to everybody else, go to that person and talk to them. Exactly. Now, if they don't do that and they, claim to be a part of the church and they're, professing Christianity and they won't turn back to that, then you go and you talk to the authority in the church. You don't go to just random people.
Exactly.
Then if that doesn't resolve it, then you know what? Instead of making it public, just keep it in the private until it has to go public. It'll go. Right. Be sure that your sin will find you out. It will go public eventually.
That's right. Everything does.
Everything you do in the dark will be revealed in the light. Everything that you do in this life will be known eventually.
That's right.
If not in this life, in the next life. Be sure that your sin will find you out.
That's the truth.
That means everything will be opened up sooner or later. The thing about me is I pretty much tell everybody everything about me. Well, I'm a regurgitator of all of my bad stuff that I've done.
Right.
And I try not to, because I know I get on other people's nerves, because I get on my own nerves. And that's
On that note,
yeah, there we go.
Let's quit getting on people's nerves and wrap up
Hi,
this
everyone.
podcast.
We're done.
But, well, this has been fun.
Yeah,
and
been great.
I hope that you guys can, as you deal with difficult people out there, just walk in the wisdom of God and the love of God,
The
and
peace.
everything's going to be okay.
Yes, follow the way of peace.
All right.
So, peace be to you.
See you
Y'all have
next
a
time.
great one.
Don't forget to like this video and please subscribe to our channel. Drop your comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If you prefer audio podcasts, please follow us on your favorite streaming platform.